So I was bored the other day, all my subscriptions got cancelled, and I was thinking, what should I do to entertain myself? So I went on YouTube, which is normal, to check out what my favorite YouTubers are doing, and I saw that they are creating these 24-hour games or one-day games, which actually take more than one day to create, but I will say I created it in 24 hours. I mean, why not? So I decided to create the famous Subway Surfers game. And the first thing I had to decide is which engine to use. That's easy. I'm going to use the best game engine in the world. So I opened Unreal Engine and started working on the game. I started working on the player, creating a blueprint for him and making him move. I already created a custom game mode that will allow me to spawn the player in the game. After I finished, I tested the character out to see the outcome.
All around me are familiar faces.
Not exactly what I was looking for, but luckily there's always a fix. I want a camera that follows the player, so I went back to the player's blueprint and added a spring arm and a camera as a child of the spring arm. I tested the game and now I have the result that I want. I also added a few extra floors so that my character has space and doesn't fall right away, but again, I saw him fall down into the abyss. Of course, I don't want my game character to walk like a zombie from The Walking Dead, so I created animations and the animation system for the character. Creating basic animations is fairly simple when you only have idle walk and jump. You can connect them easily using a blend space and adding that into the animation blueprint. Mix it up with parameters to control the transition state, and there you go. Problem solved, just like that.
Nice.
Now my game character should be running like a champ, except he is not running like a champ. He is having a seizure like a drug addict. It goes to show that you should not put the jump animation in the running state of your animation. Now that I fixed that, my character is not a drug addict anymore, and he runs like an Olympian, okay? Like Hercules, okay? So shut up, it was an honest mistake and don't judge me. Creating the jump ability for my player is easy, but when it comes to the movement, I don't want to move him smoothly from one lane to another. Instead, I want to move him from one place to another directly. To do that, I created an array that holds locations for 3 positions, and the player will simply move from one position to another when I press the appropriate button. Now, my player has the ability to jump, roll down, and as you can see, he is moving from one position to another directly and not in a smooth way where it takes a few moments for him to get to the desired position. I got tired of the boring floor in my level, so I created my own tiles, and with the help of a little magic, I made him spawn at the start of the level. Well, not in my desired direction, but it's fixable.
6.5 hours later.
With the help of another magic, I got it working now.
Run.
This will only spawn the tiles in the beginning of the level. I need them to spawn infinitely as my character runs in the game. So I made some changes in the master tile blueprint to make that happen, and I also added a way how to calculate the player's score. When I test the game now, the tiles spawn infinitely whenever the player passes through the box collider that we created in the master tile blueprint. So I have the infinite level and I have the player running. What I need now are the obstacles that will try to stop my player and the collectible items that will upgrade my player. So I created a few of them. Creating the obstacles is not enough. We still need to program some logic that will spawn the obstacles in the game. So I put my thinking cap on and I created a nice and simple way to spawn all these bad boys in the game. When I run the game now, the obstacles and collectibles items spawn in the game. And one clever thing I did was I used the lanes in the master tile blueprint to position the obstacles and collectible items, and I don't need to calculate their positions on my own. So the obstacles are in the game. Let's make them interact with the player. I've opened all the obstacles and collectibles blueprints and I started doing some magic, as always, because, you know, I'm like Harry Potter. I've added the functionality in the blueprints to detect when the player collides with them, and depending on if it's an obstacle or a collectible, it will increase the score or lives count, or it will simply decrease it, the lives count and the score and whatnot of the player. But of course, that is still not visible because we don't have our UI to display that in the game. Now is the time to create the UI HUD to display the game state, well, in the game. I'm not going to display on a cow. Where else did you think I'm going to display it? So I created a new widget blueprint and I started adding a bunch of stuff to it until it looked like an UI. I used the game character blueprint to spawn the gameplay HUD in the game, and this is how it looks like. Of course, it only has the default text that we added because we didn't create the logic to display the actual score. So, you know, let's start working on that. The first thing I did was I created a save game blueprint that will store the value I want to save. In this case, it's only the high score. After that, I created a logic in the game mode blueprint to check if the same game file exists, and if not, it will create a new one. What else did you think it will do? It will not spawn a cow, okay? This is to initialize the save game file when we first run the game, so this code will only run once as long as the game is installed on the computer. I also created functions in the gameplay HUD to get the data from the game mode blueprint and display it to the user in the, well, game. But of course, there are always problems in the project when you try to create something from the first try. So when I ran the game, the high score data was missing. It was 0 in the beginning, but the actual text was missing. But the good thing is that the other functions were working properly and the data was being shown. As always in game development, you need to do some weird things in order to make things work. So I just deleted the save file that was created and I created it again by running the game, and that fixed the problem. Just like that. Next, I proceeded to create the pause HUD so that I have something to display when I press the pause button, and that was straightforward, just adding some text and a few buttons in the widget blueprint and yada yada yada. I also created the logic to display the pause HUD in the game when the pause button is pressed, and to remove it when the continue game button is pressed. When I tested the game, the pause HUD was almost invisible in the game, so again, I had to put my thinking cap on to think of something clever to add in the pause HUD to make it more visible. And it didn't take me that long to figure out that I can simply add an image in the background and change its color, and there you go, problem solved. So, you know, next time when you have an issue with your mom, your grandma, your wife, just add an image and change the color. So now when I test the game out, my pause HUD looks amazing. The best pause HUD panel you ever saw in any video game that was ever created, ever in the entire universe. The last step was to program the continue button to allow us to continue the game when we press it. Because we don't want to make the game pause forever, you know? It's simple as that. No one wants to play a game that, you know, is paused forever. And when I play the game now, I can pause it and I can unpause it. And it continues playing from where I left off.
Nice.
What is left for me to do is create the game over HUD. And that's simple to do. Just add a bunch of text, buttons, and an image, and you can make anything look amazing and awesome. To display the game over HUD, we will use the death function in the game character blueprint. We will disable the player's movement, add a few effects, and show the game over panel. And now, when our life count drops to below 0 in the game, because, you know, below 0 you die, and that can happen when we hit an obstacle, then we will see the game over HUD being displayed in the game. Of course, we don't show the score and the buttons don't work, but who cares? We will leave it like this and sell a DLC with the game that, you know, will fix that. Yes, I'm talking to you, Activision. I quickly programmed every text in the UI to display the appropriate value, and I also made the restart button, well, restart the game. Guess we will not be creating that DLC pack after all. So now when we test this bad boy, it is going to display the score and coin score we made up to the point where we died. And when we press the restart button, we will be able to play the game again. The last step in the game is to make the day night while the game is playing. And that is very easy to do. I already have the sky sphere in the game by default. All I have to do is add a little magic, because again, Voldemort is at, his minions are at work, to make it change the time in the game. When I test the game, it looks amazing, it looks perfect, it looks stunning. No one else could have created this ever, not in a million years. After that, I just polished the game a little bit, and I published it on the App Store, and it got 1 billion downloads. And I quit YouTube. Thank you for watching.